Hi everyone, and welcome to Lesson 9, Sprite Movement Bubble 12. And here we're talking about the rotation property. So this is a little different than moving our x values. This time we're talking about the rotation of an object. So you'll notice that in the directions it says, when you're using the counter pattern for rotation property, with the addition, the object will always rotate clockwise. So if we're adding to the rotation, meaning we're rotating it, it's going to move in a clockwise position, meaning it's going to turn right, if you will, I guess, if you could say right. Sometimes, however, you might want the sprite to rotate in the other direction. So our goal is to make our program look similar to these gears that are on the right-hand side here. There are 3 gears that are set up for you. You will need to make the gears look like they are rotating in sync with each other. So if we're going to sync them, I can tell you right now, you are going to want, sorry about that, guys. You are going to want to make sure that your rotations are the same count, meaning the same number. But it doesn't mean we're not going to necessarily add or subtract. So if we want it to rotate clockwise, we're going to add. If we want it to rotate counterclockwise, meaning rotating left, we're going to subtract, just to keep that clear. So we're going to make the gears rotate so they look like the ones that are working over here in this picture. Hint, they won't rotate in the same direction. So again, some are going to be adding to the rotation, meaning some are going to be moving the object in a rotating manner, like if you think of like degrees. So you're going to rotate it 2 degrees every single time, or 4 degrees every single time. And some are going to be rotating in the opposite direction. So instead of adding 2 degrees, maybe we're subtracting 2 degrees. And that's how rotation works. So let's first run this program and take a look at how's it going. Currently, nothing's moving. They want us to use the rotation property. So let's go to, let's see, I bet it's in sprites. Haha, sprite rotation. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to drag this and I'm going to put it underneath the background, but before the draw sprite. And that's important. Draw sprite should always be the last thing in our function draw. So if you haven't noticed that, it's a good thing to remember that this draw sprite, we only need one, and it needs to be the last thing, usually the last thing in your draw function or your function draw. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's first rotate, I don't know, let's do the red gear since it's at the top. So I'm going to do red gear rotation here. And it's important to spell it the right way. You notice that G is capitalized in red gear if you haven't noticed that already. I'm going to make this bigger if you guys don't mind. And move this up. Okay, so red gear, instead of sprite, I'm going to do red, capital G for gear. And I'm not dealing with X and Y values. So they're not moving across the screen. They're not moving up and down. They're just rotating by degrees. So I don't have to worry about X and Y. However, I do need to think about the dot rotation. So right now, the rotation is set at 0. And every time I redraw this gear, I want it to rotate, let's say 4 degrees. So I need to add to the current position. So right now the current position is 0. So the next time I draw, it's going to be 4. And the next time I draw, it's going to be 8. And the next time I draw, it's going to be 12. And the next time I draw, it's going to be 16. So I need to take the original amount and add 4 to it. So to do that, I'm going to need some math. And I'm going to need the plus sign. Now, I need to add on to its original self. So I need to go back to sprites and do sprite rotation. And that's going to be in that first bubble there. So now, rotation, red rotation, red gear rotation is set at 0. And I am going to red gear, is set at 0. And I'm going to add 4. And you can pick any number. Obviously, the bigger the number, the faster it's going to rotate. So what this is saying is that when I first draw it, red gear rotation is set at 0, and I'm going to add 4. Then when I redraw it again, it's going to be red gear rotation is now 4, and I'm going to add 4 more to that. So now red gear rotation is 8. And then I'm going to draw it. And then I'm gonna redraw the white background again, and I'm gonna add 4 to the last setting of red gear rotation, which was 8. So 4 plus 8 is 12. And then I'm gonna draw it again, and then I'm gonna do the background, and then I'm going to rotate it again. So now it's 12, and then I'm gonna draw it. So let's reset and see if this will run. Awesome. So right now, my red gear is rotating. Perfect. I'm happy with it. Let's work now at the blue gear. And you'll notice in my picture, the blue gear is actually going in the opposite direction. So I know I'm probably going to have to do opposite of plus, which is, that's right, subtraction. So I'm going to have to do a few things. I'm going to get the sprite rotation. I'm going to put it under there. This is going to deal with the blue gear. So blue, capital G for gear. And instead of adding, I'm now going to subtract. So I'm going to grab this. And then I have to add to the last location of the gear. So I have to call upon that sprite again. So I have to go back to sprites, go to sprite rotation. I'm going to call upon blue gear for its original or for its last location, and that's what this does. And I'm going to subtract 4. And I want to keep the numbers the same because I want it to be consistent. So if I reset and run, now you'll notice they're working in opposite directions. Okay. And that looks good. I think we're set. And I like how they're moving. Now, obviously, if you wanted to go slower, you could change the numbers instead of 4. You could say 2. But that's completely up to you. So now let's go back to the green gear. So again, we're dealing with green gear and we're dealing with rotation, just like the direction says. That's the only thing we're dealing with. We're not moving the gear left or right, up and down. We're just moving it in terms of rotating it, like by degrees. So now we're calling upon green. Oops, helps to spell. Green gear, remember the G is capitalized. Spelling is important. If it doesn't look like our variable up here, and we call upon it down there, if they're not the same spelling, uppercase, lowercase, everything the exact, it's not going to know what we're talking about, what gear we're talking about. So that's going to be important. Okay, so we're back at green gear. And now we want the green gear to be in the same direction as the red gear. And for the red gear, you notice we added. So we're adding 4 degrees every time we're redrawing this. So let's go ahead and do a plus sign. And we're doing rotation again. So I'm back at sprites. I'm going to spell that as green here. And I'm going to add 4. So it's going to be the same amount that I added to the red. And when I hit reset, run, they should be working in the same way. So this is a little bit different than the X and Y. This one, we're rotating it. So if you were creating some kind of object that was rotating in a circle versus moving up and down and left and right, you could use dot rotation. When you're done, you are going to share this link. So you're going to go up to share. You're going to copy this link and submit in Schoology. And I will talk to you guys next week about creating your own animated project.